Hello viewers, welcome back to the Moose Mobile Auto Repair channel. I hope everybody's doing well, and today I have a video here of me doing a quick and dirty headlight restoration job. Now some people may wonder as to what happened to this Impreza that I kept on fixing and working on. Uh, some people in the comments have stated that this vehicle kept on getting repaired each and every time. Well, there's a little bit of a story to that, and so I'm going to tell you guys on what happened to this car. And unfortunately now the customer, well actually fortunately the customer got rid of it. Um, they actually got a newer Subaru and they traded it in for a newer one. I'm not going to mention because I want to keep it a surprise for the time being. But this 2009 Impreza, it kept on giving the customer too many problems. It's just that every time he came to me, it would be a $2,000 to $3,000 repair. And so I mentioned to this customer to get rid of this vehicle about 3 or 4 years ago, but they kept on insisting to keep it. I told them it was gonna get very expensive. The longer they kept this car, the more they're going to keep on paying to keep it on the road. Now the issue with this vehicle is that um, everybody knows that these specific Subarus, they were plagued with the head gasket issue. So they would most of them would leak externally, would leak oil externally, or they would leak coolant internally. And if it was leaking coolant internally, it would cause a misfire. And so Subaru used cheaper head gaskets. I don't think it was the multi-layer steel type head gasket. I think it was like a single layer or a double layer. I'm not too sure, but they've had a lot of issues with the head gaskets for many decades, but until around 2012 they fixed their problem. So after 2012 there's no more head gasket issues, but some people have stated that that because of the engineering of the engine, because it's horizontally opposed, so some people would call it a boxer engine. So because of the gravity of where the coolant sits and where the oil sits, the oil and the coolant would basically would seep down, and so it would cause issues with the head gaskets and stuff. And I believe that Porsche as well has a similar problem because their engines are also boxer engines or horizontally opposed. I'm not sure if that's the case. There's been a lot of misconceptions or debates ongoing about whether these engines cause problems due to their design, or if it was because that, more specifically, Subaru did not use good quality materials for the head gaskets and so forth. So I'm not gonna get too deep into that, but anyhow, back during December of last year of 2022, just before Christmas time, the customer actually had plans to go to the USA to see his family, and so he wasn't able to do that because this car kept on acting up. And so we discussed on what they wanted to do in terms of maintenance and repairs. So we did a breakdown of the list of items that they needed done. Although I told them to get rid of the car many times, they refused because they didn't want to have car payments. They just wanted to keep on fixing this vehicle. So I just said, okay, let's fix it then. So I recommended stuff like doing the timing belt and all this stuff. And so the problem here is that after I finished all the work, the timing belt job and everything, it was all good. But the problem is when the customer brought the vehicle to me, as soon as I finished the jobs, I went for not even down the street up to the stop sign, and I noticed that the transmission was slipping. And so um, I called the customer up and I said, hey, the RPMs are going up as the vehicle is in gear. It's a manual transmission, right? And so I was a little kind of nervous. So I don't know, but after that, they told me that they were aware of this problem, but I was not notified that there were issues before I started working on it. So it just came up as a surprise to me. But this customer, uh, they understand. And so um, so the customer stated that they were aware of this problem, and they wanted me to pick them up in their vehicle after I was finished. I told them I'm not driving this vehicle. I'm gonna take my own vehicle because I was shuttling the customer back and forth to their residence. And so I told them I'm not driving this car because it's too risky. The clutch is slipping. It's too difficult to drive it. So anyhow, somehow that customer drove it for about 1,000 kilometers without that many problems until it really started to wear down. And that's when the last kilometers they drove it. They drove it to the dealership because that customer was ready to get a newer vehicle. So yeah, I think I ran out of the the footage for the headlight restoration. So I'm just going to continue here. Um, so yeah, I told this customer to get rid of this vehicle multiple times. I know it's good for me, but it's bad for him. So, but I'm a very honest guy, so I like to tell people the truth, because there's no sense of lying to people. It doesn't get you anywhere. So anyhow, I stated to this customer that it's going to cost him more for the repairs than the actual resale value of the vehicle itself. So the repairs would far exceed the value of the vehicle. And so I just kept on telling him, hey, there's no point of keeping on throwing some money. I told him repeatedly, there's no sense of throwing money onto this car. This car is literally a shitbox. I mean, there's no point. It just has almost 300,000 kilometers. It's getting rusted. And I told him the head gaskets were leaking for the longest time. Although the car was still drivable, the engine is still running fairly okay. So I said the head gaskets, and who knows if there's uh, any other issues when you take the heads off, because I know on some Subarus, some of the blocks, they may have some cracks on it when you take the heads off. And so, I mean, God knows on what else is wrong when you take everything apart. So I told him bare minimum head gaskets, probably $5,000 to $6,000. The catalytic converter was leaking. It was a very bad exhaust leak. It's been replaced maybe a few years or so ago with an aftermarket one, I think. So the catalytic converter will be about maybe 2,000. This is including parts and labor altogether, and materials and so forth. And the clutch and the flywheel around 1,500 to 2,000. And some years ago, he did take it to a dealership. It wasn't a very good dealership, and they had very bad reviews. And so those people, they screwed up the transmission very badly. There's a story to that. When this Subaru was at about 115,000 kilometers, the clutch and everything, it broke down. The customer said that there was a lot of smoke coming from underneath the hood, and there was like a really bad burning smell. Typically, when a clutch is going out, some people might say that it smells like burning paper, but I described it to him as smelled like a burning paper in like a fart smell, all mixed together. I know you guys are gonna be laughing, but I'm telling you the truth. It smells like that. It's like a mixture of burning paper and as if that somebody farted or something. It's not a pleasant smell. So that was the sign of his clutch was pretty much gone, like out. So he had it towed to a Subaru dealership. They're not very reputable. They have a lot of bad reviews. I'm not going to mention the name. And so what happened here is these people I don't know what happened, but when they did the job, the customer told me that the vehicle, it didn't feel right, like everything was off, and he had it go back to them around a minimum of 3 times. He went back 3 times, and I don't know if they had the transmission apart 3 times. I heard that they didn't even replace or resurface the flywheel or anything, because typically when you do a clutch job, it's imperative to either resurface or to replace the flywheel, even if it looks good or not. You should always resurface or replace the flywheel depending on the cost. And so depends on the customer too. So but at the minimum, resurface it depending on the condition. So ever since then, he had the clutch done at 115 K. He never went back there again. And at one point, I'm actually good friends with this customer. We were actually hanging out for coffee one day, and he let me drive his car. And so it was refusing to go into gear. It wouldn't go in reverse. It wouldn't go in first. You'd kind of have to force it. And so I told him, hang on a minute. I'm going to check the level and the fluid level for the transmission, see what's there. So this one has a dipstick. So I checked it, and I'm like, there's no fluid on here. I'm like, the dipstick is dry. I'm like, there's almost no fluid in the transmission. I told them on what did these guys do, right? So this dealership, they released the vehicle with almost no fluid in it. because when he came to me to service it, it had probably half a liter, not even. This transmission takes roughly about 3 liters or something of gear oil. So it had less than a liter of the fluid in it. So there's been some damage to this transmission. So I wanted to mention that not only the clutch and the flywheel job, also the transmission was not sound. Like, it still worked, but the shifting wasn't all that great and smooth. So there's been some damage to it. And so yeah, that's it for the for the most part. So totaling everything up is roughly $10,000 worth of repairs, or even more. God knows how much. So he was doing some number crunching on his own time. He just decided to get a newer vehicle instead. So he traded it in, and he probably got like $500 for it, for the old car, the '09 Impreza. And so that's pretty much it. So yeah, that's everything there is on this list. That's the major repairs that this vehicle needed. And I feel bad. I feel bad for the customer that he spent all this money only to find out that you can't even drive the car anymore. I'm like, and what the heck is the point, right? So anyhow, we had a joke a while ago. He would always say that so he's paying for my son's college, right? He's literally paying for my son's future college to do all these repairs on his vehicles. So anyhow, he will be bringing his new vehicle to me for servicing. So we'll see on what happens in the future, and how well that new vehicle holds up. I'm not going to mention about it, but stay tuned for future videos on that one. Anyhow, I know I haven't been posting too many in-depth car videos because it's been very slow in the month of February. And I know usually January, February, and March is a slow season, so there's not too much going on there. So it's been a little bit hard to put out some like good and better videos out there. But I'm coming up with different ideas during the slow season to to put out some content for you guys. That's it for today. If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and take care.